Well, this afternoon I'm going to talk about the National Hive and its components. The National Hive is the most common hive in the United Kingdom that's used by amateur beekeepers. The one I've got here is a wooden hive. You can get them in polystyrene. You'll need to decide yourself whether you want to keep wood or polystyrene. There are some advantages with polystyrene. They're said to be better insulation, and they keep the bees perhaps warmer over the winter. They're also lighter. On the other hand, people like the feel and look of a wooden hive, and so in a minute I'm going to just take this apart and look at the components part by part. So here we have a National Hive, and the components, as you can see, are first of all, this is the roof here. Then we have the supers, there's a queen excluder here, the brood box, the floor, and then there's a stand here that the whole construction stands on. So I'm going to take each part apart as we go. So I'm now going to take it apart. So this is the roof. It's quite heavy, designed to stay on the hive if there's a wind, and as you can see I've got a number on the front. It's very important to keep a number on the hive, or either on the hive itself or inside the hive, so that you can keep accurate records. It's weatherproof, it's got a metal roof. And then the next thing you come to is some insulation. It's very important to use insulation in the hive, especially through the winter. This is just a piece of insulating board, which is extremely effective. It's very light. Probably needs to be on the hive for most of the year, although you can take it off in the summer. And then you come to the crown board, which is the covering that keeps the bees inside the hive. Crown boards usually come with two holes, and these fit a piece of equipment called a porta-bee escape, which is this thing here, which is in effect a one-way valve for bees, which is very useful if you need to use the board for clearing the bees after a honey flow, when you're taking the honey off. But it's easier to use some pieces of plywood or something like that to stick in put over the holes. These tend to get stuck together. And then the next thing you come to is the super, and this is where you hope to get your honey crop, where the bees will store the honey, and you put a queen excluder underneath the super so that the queen can't get in there and lay eggs. There are usually 10 or 11 frames in here. This is a very nice drawn out frame, empty frame, all ready for the bees to lay in. The bees start off with a frame of foundation, and they build up this comb, which is really quite a remarkable construction. I'm going to remove the super now, and underneath the super is the queen excluder, and this is a device for keeping the queen inside the brood box so that the workers can get into the super, but the queen bee remains in the brood box with all the young bees. And again, the brood box has usually 11 frames, 10 or 11 frames. This has got 11. If there's a little space, you sometimes need to put a dummy board in just to fill the gap, because the bees will fill the gap if any gap is left. and again there's some drawn comb here, and some not drawn comb. So this is the brood box. Then underneath the brood box we have the floor, and it's more or less standard practice now to keep bees on what's called an open mesh floor. So this is open to the elements, but it is thought to provide much better protection from the main disease that affects bees, which is varroa. And this is an entrance block, a small entrance block that fits in front of the hive entrance, which can reduce the entrance, which makes it easier for the bees to defend, and that's particularly important if it's a small colony or particularly towards the end of the season. And then the final piece of equipment you'll need, and this is the sort of thing that you can easily make yourself, is a hive stand. It's better if the hive stand is open so that any debris that's coming from the mesh floor can drop through onto the ground rather than build up underneath the hive. Probably needs to be something in the order of 12 inches to 18 inches high. It's effectively to allow you to work the hives at a comfortable height. And you need to remember that you can, in a very good year, have quite a number of supers on the hive, so you don't want the hive to get too big, so it's important to keep it fairly low, but not too low that it makes it very difficult and particularly a strain on your back. So that's the National Hive.